Only Sega would think it would be a good idea to take all the hardware inside a Sega Genesis and cram it into a handheld console. You can see this as a good thing or you can see this as a bad thing, but this is what I love about Sega. They didn't care if it was going to be big and bulky, and they didn't care if it was going to have a shitty battery life. They did it because they could. And hell, in 1995, if you wanted to play your Sega Genesis games on the go, you had that opportunity. Sega released the Nomad in October of 1995 for $180 US. Like the Game Gear, it takes 6 AA batteries. Unlike the Game Gear, however, the 6 AA batteries have to be installed in an external battery pack. In other words, the Nomad, without the batteries, is already pretty big and bulky. It's bigger than the Game Gear. But then when you take into account the fact that you have to have the battery pack on the back, it makes it even bigger. It's very big and very bulky. Like I said, this is all pure Genesis hardware. This is no emulation on a chip or, Genesis on a chip like what we have today with the clones. Because of that, this thing does work with games like Virtua Racing. The system was originally only released in North America, and it was never released in PAL regions, which is pretty odd, to be honest, because the Sega Genesis or the Sega Mega Drive, if anything, was probably more popular in some European regions in the mid-90s, 1995. I think it would have sold probably even better over there, so it's strange they didn't release it over there. They didn't release it in Japan originally because in Japan they had the Sega Mega Jet. The Sega Mega Jet was basically a Nomad without the screen. Sounds kind of pointless, but it was mainly used for airlines. So you would have a TV screen in the headrest in front of you, and you would use the Mega Jet to play Sega Genesis games on that TV. So taking a look at the system itself, as you can see on the front, it does have the full 6-button layout with the mode button, just like on a 6-button Genesis controller. Has a fairly large, for the time, 3.25-inch color screen. On the top, we have the power switch, the AC adapter input, which is definitely going to come in handy on this. Of course, the cartridge slot itself with a nice spring-loaded door, and the same AV output small DIN jack that you get on a Model 2 or Model 3 Sega Genesis. On the bottom, you can see a volume knob and a headphone jack. A controller 2 port. Once again, you can hook this up to a TV, and with the controller 2 port, you can plug in a second controller and play 2-player games. Use it just like a Genesis console. And finally, we have a brightness knob. There's really nothing on either side of the system. On the back of the system, basically you just have the clips for the battery pack. Now, there's 2 ways you could run the batteries. Either the stock battery pack, which required you to put 6 AA batteries inside the battery pack, and later on they eventually sold a rechargeable battery pack for $79. Well, if Sega didn't learn any lessons from the Game Gear, it goes without saying that the Nomad was not a huge seller. I mean, it was basically all the problems with the Game Gear, and then some. It was even bigger and bulkier than the Game Gear. It was no better on batteries, taking 6 AA batteries. And like I said, they would have known that going in. I mean, anyone would have known, cramming all the Genesis hardware, Motorola 68000, the Z80, the graphics processor, and the Yamaha sound chips, and everything that's in a Sega Genesis is crammed inside of this handheld. I don't think Nintendo would have even thought of doing that. They would have just known that that was a bad idea. And once again, that's what I love about Sega. They said, hell, we can do it. Let's just throw all that hardware in there. it's a little big, it's a little bulky, and put it out on the market. It's a pretty neat idea. You would have been able to play your Genesis games on the go. Like I said, in the mid-90s, if you traveled a lot, it would have been great, because you could take the same Genesis games you played at home, play them on the road. If you happen to be going to, say, oh, I don't know, your parents' cottage, when you got there, you could hook it up to the TV and continue playing the Genesis games on the cottage TV. So it definitely made sense, and it was a good idea. You know, just technology wasn't really there yet. Battery technology wasn't exactly the best at the time. Of course, now we have lithium-ion batteries, and battery technology's gotten a lot better. Screens have gotten a lot better. As you saw in the video, the screen isn't as bad as the Game Gear, but it's certainly not up to today's standards of active TFT LCD panels. It's a lot better than the Game Gear, though. So I mean, it's what you would expect for the time. So, anyways, that's my Sega Nomad. As a Sega collector, it's a must-have for me. So there you go. See you guys later.